Hello, I'm Dr. Arthur Bradley, author of the Handbook to Practical Disaster Preparedness for the Family. Now, I've completed a couple of previous videos relating to guns. The first was gun safety, and the second was basic gun handling techniques. I highly encourage you to watch those two videos before this one. This third video is going to be about some tips to stay alive in a real-world gunfight. Now, before we do any demonstrations, I want to verify that in fact my firearm is unloaded. And it is. So we're ready to get started with some of these tips. The first tip is the most important, and that is that you need to get in the proper mindset to survive the encounter. That means that you become part warrior and part survivor, doing whatever's necessary to survive the situation. Now, that's not something most people are used to doing. Most of the time we're calm, we're relaxed, we're in an environment where we trust the world around us is safe, and then suddenly, perhaps within a few seconds, we have to change to a very different mentality. So if you're in an encounter where you know you're having to draw a firearm to protect yourself, you need to be able to make that shift and make it very quickly. Alright, the second tip is that if possible, you want to prevent the encounter. Now, to prevent the encounter, the best way to do that is to warn your aggressor before he gets too close. So if you see, for example, maybe you're walking alone at night, you're going through the parking lot towards your car, and you see someone approaching between the cars, and you know that this is a situation that's dangerous. This isn't someone that's asking for directions. This is some situation you can tell it's not going to go well. It behooves you, before the person gets too close, to use your firearm to warn them and stop them. Let them know you are not an easy target. Now, that can be very simple. It could just be shouting out at the person. It could be much more aggressive than that. It could be stop and draw a firearm on them. It could be any combination thereof. Alright, so you need to decide how serious that situation is. Whether it's just simply telling them to stay back and putting your hand on your weapon, whether it's saying, I've got nothing for you here, stay back, stay back. You need to let them know you are not an easy target, and you're not going to have someone sneak up on you and take advantage of you. You're going to engage in a fight with them. Most of the time that's enough. Many times people are looking for the easy targets and they'll back away. They might even laugh and act like you're acting irrational, but in reality you may have just saved your own life. Okay, the third tip is to, if at all possible, maintain your distance from your aggressor. Now, most gunfights happen within 10 feet, believe it or not. So that's a very close range to be pulling a firearm and trying to engage someone. Ideally, you'd like them somewhere between 10 and 30 feet to have the best chance of hitting your target, as well as preventing them from, let's say, injuring you with a knife or some other up-close weapon. So to do that, as part of that combination of warning your aggressor, you're going to tell them to stay back, you're going to be prepared to draw your firearm, and before they get too close, you're going to be willing to draw that firearm and to present it so that they're well aware that you are armed and willing to engage them. So again, 10 to 30 feet is sort of the rule of thumb. It's not to say you can't hit a target that's 25 yards away. You certainly can. But when you're heightened, you have the heightened sense of danger around you, there's adrenaline flowing through your body, it becomes difficult to have that steady hand that you might need. You pose more of a threat to other people around you. Likewise, if the person is only a few feet from you and you try and do a conventional draw and fire on them, they may well take your weapon away from you. So there are techniques, of course, and we've talked about them in one of the other videos about how to fight up close perhaps with a firearm where you're able to shoot in tight. But again, that's not ideal. Ideally, you'd like to have them far enough away that you can present the weapon and engage them in a way that's to your advantage. The fourth tip is to watch your opponent's hands. Hands carry knives, hands carry guns. Hands are what present the danger to you. Don't watch his eyes. Don't look for an intention. You're watching his hands. Alright, tip 5 is if there's one opponent, there's two opponents. And if there's two opponents, there's three opponents. The point being, of course, that there's always assumed to be one more enemy out there than the ones you initially see. So oftentimes you'll see during training, people will try and drill that into their mindset. So they might be in a situation where they're training, they've neutralized the target, and they're taught to come back and look around the situation before they holster their weapon to make sure there's not another threat out there. Now, that's a very good training practice. You should do that anytime, whether you're at the range or not. If you're doing some kind of a practical training situation, you draw the weapon, you engage the target, you always look to make sure everything is clear. Now, you don't do, I often see people do this, they'll try that and they'll just do the quick spin around and they're not even really looking for anything. Your point is you're looking to see, you may have neutralized one target, but is there another one in hiding that you don't currently see? Once you put the firearm back away, you're at a disadvantage. You're a second away from having it back in your hand. Be ready for the second opponent or the third opponent or whatever else might be out there. Tip number 6 is, if a person is carrying a rifle, assume that he has on body armor. Now, this has been learned the hard way by police in many different situations, but you can assume if a person has gone to the trouble to equip a rifle, perhaps an assault rifle, he may well have put on body armor to protect himself. He intends to inflict a great deal of damage. So shoot accordingly. If a person is carrying a rifle, you would shoot for the head or you would shoot for the groin. Alright, the next tip is to always assume that whatever you do is caught on camera. We live in a world of cameras, from cell phone cameras to security cameras, ATM cameras. Everywhere you go, your actions are frequently caught on film. Now you should assume that when you're in a life-threatening situation, whatever actions you take will later be reviewed by a jury and they'll be looking at film of that situation. So the question then becomes did you act reasonably and responsibly? Did you warn the person if you had an opportunity? Did you present the firearm to let them know you were in fact armed, giving them a chance to retreat? And if you had to engage the target, did you do so safely and effectively? All of those things will be called into question and scrutinized. So you should be aware that cameras are all around you and you should act accordingly. The final tip is perhaps the most difficult. Assume you're in a situation, you've had to pull your firearm, you've shot someone, they're lying in a pool of blood, maybe they're dead. The police arrive, they're going to have many questions about the situation. They want to know exactly what happened. The tip is this: keep your mouth shut. Under almost every situation, you are not going to present the best possible case for yourself when you're in that mode of all of that adrenaline going on. You need to explain to the police that you'd rather calm down before you give a statement that can be held against you. Now, in some sense, I know that's scary because you're going to be taken to the police station. Perhaps they're even going to present some charges against you. You'll have to meet with an attorney who will help you draft your statement carefully. But history has shown that you always fare better in that way by having a well-drawn statement that you can do so in a calm and rational way rather than blurting out things that might or might not be relevant at the crime scene that could later be held against you. So again, exercise your Fifth Amendment right and keep your mouth shut until it's the time to talk.